You have to be delusional at times. I'm Tony. Welcome back to Streetball Strategies.
Delusional, nah, I call it ambition. Down by 20, still dreaming of a mission. Caught dreams, I'm the king in the scene. Even when the odds crush me, I stay supreme. Delusional.
Today we're talking about a quote that I saw from the Netflix documentary Court of Gold. It was when Grant Hill was talking about the American Olympic team facing Serbia in the 2024 Olympics. The United States was down 20 points or so going into the fourth quarter of that game, and Grant Hill said to pull this game out or games like that, you need to be delusional at times, because when you're on such a grand scale and you're playing such a good team as Serbia, it's improbable that you're going to make some magical comeback and be able to beat them being 20 points down going into the last quarter of the game. So his point about needing to be delusional in order to pull that off is, I found it to be something that can be very common out here as well. Playing from behind, trying to make a comeback, trying to win a game where you are pretty sure you don't really stand a chance. So I thought today we would talk about why being delusional out here can be helpful and how by doing so in a proper way can help you to establish a reputation out here and help you to become a better player. Let's start this off by talking about why being delusional can be fairly important. Because traditionally, you would think it wouldn't be better to just be real with yourself, to deal with reality. A lot of times I like to think of being realistic as like you have to deal with reality on reality's terms. But when you're trying to do something improbable, something that probably shouldn't be done, or most people would think that it can't be done, then being delusional, it can be very helpful in those situations. It's kind of the idea of like, how can you achieve something that seems unlikely if you don't believe in it? Like, no one else is going to believe in what you're trying to do if, at the very least, you yourself don't believe it first. But being delusional kind of transcends that, because it's not just belief. You are convinced you're going to win. There's no doubt in your mind that you can and you will earn that success. It's just a matter of time and you putting in the work to achieve it. But in terms of why it's so important, to me comes down to like two main reasons, and that's pretty much to learn and to have the experience of doing so. Because the more experience you have doing this, the more you learn how to do it and have the experience of being in those kinds of situations and getting closer and closer to overcoming them over and over again over time, the easier it becomes, the more routine it becomes. And I don't know about you guys, but one of the main objectives for me being out here recreationally and taking it so seriously is I'm trying to build a reputation. And one of the biggest elements of that reputation to me is when you are on my team, you win, or if you play against me, you lose. And that is regardless of whatever circumstances. So if you're on my team and we find ourselves playing against way better competition, or we find ourselves playing in a game where we are at such a deficit where the other team is about to win and we've only scored a few points, even in those situations, if you're on my team, I have the reputation to overcome that. And part of having the ability to do that is being delusional enough to think that even if I'm playing against better competition, I can figure out how to win. Even if I'm down by a lot in a game, I can still figure out how to make a comeback and make a game out of it. Even though it's unlikely, even though it's improbable, even though it's probably not going to happen, or at least shouldn't happen given the circumstances, I can still find a way. I can, I will, I have, and I will continue to get better and better at doing that. Under extreme underdog situations like that, it's very delusional to have those kinds of beliefs and to try to build that kind of reputation. But the reason you choose to be delusional instead of to be realistic and probably in those kinds of extreme circumstances to be defeatist is to get that experience and to learn from it to make it easier over time. Probably the smarter or more responsible way to handle situations like that is just to accept the loss, accept that you're going to lose, accept that it's not really possible for you to overcome in those extreme situations, and to just accept it, get it over with, and move on to the next game and hope that you do better. But I believe that when you're out here and it means so much to you and you're as serious as you claim to be, then you can't just accept when you're doing well or when you're winning. You also have to accept, like, okay, I'm in an extreme situation where I probably can't win. You have to take the good with the bad. So when you're winning and you're playing well, you can't just be like, well, that's all I do, and that's the only time I really, accept responsibility for what's going on out here. In the situations when you're losing and you're facing competition that's way better than you, or you're in a situation where you're in such a deficit in a game where there's no way you can make a comeback, you still have to take responsibility for that situation as well. Just because you lose in that certain game and those certain situations doesn't mean you can't learn to get better with them and make improvements over time. Because for at least the first half of that experience, when the first half of your time and game of experience being in those extreme situations, yes, you're gonna lose, but you lose so that you can learn in the future how to turn that around. So the second half of your time dealing with situations like that, you are able to overcome. You are able to deal with it much more. So that's why you should not just give up when you find yourself in those extreme situations and convince yourself to be delusional and just throw yourself completely into it and accept okay, well, no matter what the circumstances are, I'm still gonna play as hard as I can. I'm still gonna play the best that I can. And by doing so, I am going to come away from this situation with a positive experience, win or lose. So meaning even if I lose, I learn. And if I come from behind and actually do win, then I won either way. So either you win the game by making a astonishingly improbable comeback, or you learn from the situation and you get better, which is a win-win either way. Now we come to, how do you execute being delusional? Because it's more than just convincing yourself that you're going to achieve something that is almost impossible. Because when you're delusional, you have to have a genuine conviction that X, Y, and Z is going to happen. And just like with any other part of life, when you're completely convinced and have complete conviction that something's gonna happen, of some kind of belief that you have, you don't execute that belief, that conviction half-heartedly. The more convinced you are, the more effort you put into whatever it is. And that's the way it should go out here on the court as well. You're delusional, you think you're going to win under improbable circumstances. If you genuinely, truly believe that and you're being delusional, then that means you go after it absolutely as hard as you can. So from a physical standpoint, that means just playing absolutely as hard as you can, as hard as how to do. Even if you're making mistakes or the other team is better and they're forcing you to have turnovers or whatever it may be, you still just go as hard as you can. You put your head down and you just grind. You just fight. You just put out as much effort as you can. You don't worry about the consequences, like maybe I'm going to turn the ball over, maybe they're going to steal the ball from me, maybe I'll make a bad pass, maybe I'll dribble and maybe I'll try to penetrate the paint and they'll bring a double team, so that's not going to mean anything. No, you don't think of any of those consequences. You just put your head down, go as hard as you can to execute as best as you know how to do. You don't get defeated if you turn the ball over, if they steal the ball. No matter what happens, you continue to grind, you continue to work hard. Offense, defense, rebounding, hustling, no matter what it is, you go as hard as you can. As for a mental and strategic aspect, now you have the chance to study your opponent in a way that you normally wouldn't be able to. Because in improbable situations, when your opponent's just better than you or you're operating at a severe deficit, everyone on the court is aware of that. Everybody knows that your opponent's better than you. Everybody knows the score of the game and that you're probably going to lose. And because of that awareness, that your opponent also has, their perspective is different than yours. When they know that they're probably going to win, their style of play is probably going to change. This gives you the opportunity to study them and try to understand how and why they play the way they do in order to find weaknesses and mistakes in their game that they normally wouldn't probably make, because normally the game would be closer, either in competition or in the score of the game itself, and they would play a different way with a different style, with a different perspective in those situations. But now that they have the lead, or they just know they're better than you, their playing style is going to change, and it's your job to study it and understand. In situations like that, your opponents are more apt to get complacent, bored, and or lazy. The easier the game feels for them, if they're playing down to competition or they have a huge lead that they can sort of lean on and not have to take the rest of the game all that seriously, many players in that situation get comfortable. And when they get comfortable, that means they start to show you their weaknesses and start to make mistakes they wouldn't normally make. It's on you to be aware of those things, to study them, and to start to use those weaknesses and mistakes against them. Now, are there players who will run through the tape, meaning they have the lead or they know they're better than you and they continue to play hard and smart anyway? Of course. There are players like that, but especially when we're talking about out here at the park recreationally, it's much more common that you're going to run into players who, when they find themselves leading or they find themselves playing against lesser competition, they just get comfortable and they start playing different, start showing mistakes and weaknesses. So when that happens, be prepared that that's very probably going to happen. When it starts to happen, you'll start to notice it. You'll notice those mistakes. You'll notice their weaknesses. And now you can start to chip away at those and start to use them against them. Because remember, you're still playing absolutely as hard and smart as you can. They, on the other hand, because they're leading or they're better, they're probably playing down to you, meaning they're getting lazy. They're not taking you seriously. They're starting to goof off. It's not serious to them anymore. So they're starting to play down to you while you're still trying to play up to them. Hopefully that starts to balance things out. But you can't achieve that hopeful eventual balance unless you play absolutely as hard and smart as you possibly can. Lastly, about playing delusionally goes a little bit back to the aspect of learning and getting the experience of doing so. In that, playing delusionally will give you information about yourself that you haven't had before. Even if you do it repeatedly, you'll usually get some kind of new information. Specifically, that information is, how do you play against better competition? Because the reason you're being delusional is because either you're playing against players that are just better than you, or if they have an incredible lead on you, but they're not necessarily better, well, at least in that game and in those circumstances, they are better. They're in a much better position than you are. So when you are delusional and convinced that you're still going to play well and make some kind of a comeback, while you're going through that process in that situation, in that game, you're gathering information about yourself, your personality, your game, about how do you do when you're facing extreme circumstances like that, when you're playing against better competition. If you are a newer, younger player and you haven't done that before or not much at all, this gives you a starting point to learn, like, how's your composure when you're trying to make this comeback? Are you composed, or are you confused and frantic and you feel chaotic? Or do you find that you maybe surprisingly handle that pressure pretty well and it doesn't really bother you all that much? You're gathering information that you never had before. So, like, do you still execute well against better competition? Do you actually somehow play harder or better against someone who's better than you? You can discover a whole lot of different things about yourself and your game and your on-court personality that you never knew before, just by convincing yourself to be delusional in extreme situations like that. And then even if you're not new and a beginner anymore. As you progress with dealing with situations like that, you're still learning like, okay, how better did I handle this situation this time than the last time I was in a similar situation. You're able to see, understand, be aware of how you're growing in situations like that. And the more information you gather, the more aware of it you are, the better you're going to be able to adapt to situations like that. You'll know how to adjust when you're playing in situations where the competition is just flat out better than you, or if you're trailing from behind. The more that happens, the more information you gather, the better you'll be able to adapt over time. It's going to take time and repetition, but as long as you're smart about it and you take it seriously and you really commit to being delusional, that adaptation will get better and better over time. It's kind of a snowball effect to the point where like playing against better competition isn't even really an obstacle to you anymore in terms of like, you don't avoid it, you accept it because you want to learn. And you want to learn because you will grow from that. You'll learn and you'll get better, and next time you'll do even better. And sooner than later, you will be able to balance the scales whenever you find yourself in those kind of extreme circumstances. But you'll never be able to do that unless and until you give in and accept being delusional in situations where normally you just be like, yep, I'm probably gonna lose. I should probably give up instead. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, if you found it helpful at all, if you think it's going to help you become a better player in extreme basketball circumstances like that, then please subscribe to the channel. And let us know down in the comments, how do you deal with playing against better competition or trying to come back from severe deficits like that? When it comes to being delusional out here, do you accept that? Do you like lean into being delusional? Or are you more sort of realistic and defeatist when it comes to extreme circumstances like that? But before you comment, make sure you hit that thanks button down below, because not only does hitting that thanks button directly support the channel, but it also highlights any comment that you make, making it stand out from any other comment. So for anyone that does hit that thanks button, know I genuinely appreciate it. As always, like, share, comment, like I said, make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever any video goes live on this channel. And until then, see you guys next week.
Opponent's a giant, I'm David with no sling, but my handle sings songs like championship rings. Preparation in the shadows, 3 a.m. drills, imaginary buzzer beaters giving me chills. Study the tape like a scripture divine, every pivot, every fake, every step and rewind. My sneakers scream on the hardwood stage, though I'm losing the war, I'm still winning the page. Fake it till I make it, that's the creed I recite. Every shot of prayer, every block of fight. Fake it till I make it, that's the creed I recite. Every shot of prayer, every block of fight.